Good evening. I'm Joan Hardy, President of the League of Women Voters of Glendale, Burbank, and I would like to welcome you to this forum. As we begin our evening of democracy in action, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight's candidate forum will be in two parts. We will begin with the city clerk portion that will last approximately 25 minutes, and then there will be a 10-minute intermission. The second portion of the forum consists of the city council candidates and will begin after the intermission. To begin tonight's forum, the League would like to take the opportunity to thank the hardworking staff of the City of Glendale. The League appreciates collaborating with the city staff to bring the citizens of Glendale this candidate forum. We would also like to thank the candidates for both City Clerk and City Council and their willingness to participate. We are planning to have all the candidates present tonight, and we are excited and happy that everything has come together so that you, the voters, have a good opportunity to become familiar with the candidates for the upcoming local election. The election date is April 2nd. Registered voters will be receiving their ballots today and within the following several days. On your ballot, you will be voting for your choice of candidates for the offices of City Clerk, City Treasurer, City Council, and Board of Education. Also, there are 3 measures on the ballot, measures A, B, and C. The League is hosting this candidate forum so that you, the voter, can become better acquainted with the candidates and the issues in our community. The League of Women Voters was first started in 1920 after women won the right to vote. Our organization is open to both men and women. We are strong supporters of the election process and encourage citizens to exercise our constitutional right to vote. Typically, voter turnout in these local elections is low. And the City of Glendale has placed attractive banners on the light posts throughout the city to remind Glendale citizens of the election on April 2nd. The League wants to join the City of Glendale in encouraging voters to vote and to reach out to family members and friends and make sure they vote as well. The voter registration deadline is March 18th. The questions you will be hearing tonight are questions from the public and are not scripted beforehand by party officials or advocates for a particular candidate. We hope you find the questions to the candidates important and revealing, and that you, the voter, can help make an informed decision. Tonight's candidate forum also calls for adherence to terms of civil discourse by both the candidates and the public. The hallmark of democracy is a willingness of all members of our community to treat each other with courtesy and respect, not just the people we agree with. It is in that spirit that we are here this evening to engage in a vital part of our democratic process, a civilized discussion of the important issues that confronts our communities. Again, I want to thank all the candidates and the audience for being here tonight. The League thanks the City of Glendale for once again providing voters with the opportunity to view the forum both in person here tonight and via rebroadcast on GTV6 and the web. We are particularly grateful for the assistance of the Public Information Officer, Tom Lorenz, and the outstanding technical crew of GTV6, Brian Holloran and Sabrina Thomas. And now I would like to introduce our moderator for City Clerk portion of the forum, Mary Dixon. Mary is a longtime League member. She is actually the person responsible for getting me to join the League. We are grateful to Mary and her many hours of volunteering for the League of Women Voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Good evening. I am Mary Dixon, and I will be the moderator for the City Clerk Forum. The forum will be televised live and then repeated at subsequent times on Glendale TV 6. It will also be available for live streaming from the City of Glendale website. No reproduction or rebroadcast of this forum may be made without the prior written permission of the League of Women Voters and the City of Glendale. No digital recording is permitted in these chambers. The audience here tonight is invited to submit written questions for the candidates. Please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question, and one of the monitors will provide you with a card and a pencil. Questions will be collected only during the opening statements and during the first 2 questions. We would like to request that the audience now turn off all cell phones and pagers and that they refrain from applauding or otherwise disrupting the forum. If a candidate's supporters are disruptive during another candidate's remarks, the other candidate will be given additional time to compensate for the interruption. Additionally, attacks of a personal nature, including private matters having no bearing on a candidate's public persona or ability to perform the duties of office in a competent, ethical manner, will not be tolerated. If a candidate makes a personal attack during his or her remarks, the time required for me to interrupt the candidate and remind him or her of the rule will be taken from their speaking time. I would like to begin by introducing the candidates for City Clerk in ballot order. Stephanie Landrigan, Ardash's Artie Kasakian. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for an opening statement. Following this, I will ask questions submitted by the audience and the public. The first candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the first question. The other candidate will then have 30 seconds each to respond to the same question. The second question will then be addressed to the next candidate, who will have 1 minute to respond, followed by a 30-second response from the other candidate, and so on. There will be 8 questions in all. During these responses, our timekeepers will alert candidates to the time remaining with signs of 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and then a stop sign when they are out of time. Following the question period, the candidates will be given 1 minute each for a closing statement. We will now begin with the opening statements. Ms. Landrigan, your opening statement, please.
I would like to thank the League for this opportunity. I'm an 18-year resident of Glendale, Stephanie Landrigan. I have served the city on 3 different commissions. My roles on the Design Review and the Planning Commissions have been to protect the hillsides and also to protect South Glendale from overparking. I am fair, impartial, and I listen when residents speak. My experience as a director at UCLA of 2 academic programs involves handling sensitive documents, social security numbers, transcripts. I manage a budget of over $1 million and 70 instructors. I am running for city clerk again. I believe the city clerk's most important function is to conduct fair, open, accurate, and secure elections. 3 city election audits brought up concerns about our elections, how the ballots were secured, received, tracked, especially the mail-in ballots. My goals are to conduct a transparent election, track the mail-in ballots from beginning to end, advertise and recruit poll workers, manage the documents.
Thank you, Ms. Landrigan.
Thank you.
Mr. Kasakian, your opening statement, please.
Before I make my statement, I just want to thank the League of Women Voters for their work in organizing these forums continuously, not just for this election, but for all elections. But I also want to take a moment today to thank some individuals who have had an influence on my life, and those are the teachers in my life who taught me U.S. history and taught me to be a helpful and honest person. So indulge me as I thank Mrs. Shields, Mrs. Myers, Mrs. Goodman, Mr. Kohlmeyer, Ms. Long, Mr. Dryden, Ms. Meadows, Ms. Doris McKentley, and most important teacher in my life, my own mom. I'm Artie Kasakian, Glendale City Clerk, and I've had the privilege of serving in this position for the last 8 years. I'm seeking re-election because I know and understand our city's past and care deeply about its future. Under my leadership, we've had many accomplishments in the City Clerk's office. More accessible, transparent, and responsive City Clerk's office, which has helped place all our City Council and Board and Commission meetings online, so you can view them from the comfort of your personal computer. We developed GlendaleVotes.org, a one-stop information center for all the election information. And we started a program to bring local students here to City Hall to learn about how city government functions. During the last few years of budget cuts, we've adapted to do more with less. What I urge voters is not to take a step backwards at this time, but to help us continue to move this office forward by re-electing me to continue to serve the people of Glendale. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kasakian. We will now begin the question period. The first question will be directed to Ms. Landrigan. Technological advances, such as online voter registration, are being introduced in California and elsewhere. Do you think that Glendale municipal election process could also be improved through technology? Please explain. Your 1-minute response, please.
I believe the online voting process has not been approved by the Secretary of the State. It's still being conducted as a trial. I don't believe until that it is treated as a secure method of voting, it should be introduced into the city. I think there are other technological advances we can use, and some of them might be to put more of the voting options, the sample ballot, online and to have an opt-out for having your ballot received or not.
Thank you. Mr. Kasakian, your 30-second response, please.
Well, I believe the question was regarding actually online registration, which I am in support of. I think that the Secretary of State has made a tremendous advance in that by linking the records to the DMV records, so everything is interconnected and we have the ability to register people online. Also, same-day registration is important as well. As far as electronic voting, yes, until there's a secure system, we shouldn't have that, until we have a paper trail that we can continuously trace. But we have taken the sample ballot in the city of Glendale. It is online. We have made technological advances, including the signature verification machine. We were the first city in the region to use it, and all the other cities in this area are now following our example, including Burbank, which just used it successfully in their election because of the work that we did successfully.
Thank you. The next question will be directed to Mr. Kasakian. Within the limitation of the city clerk's election budget, what additional things could be done to enhance voter outreach and hopefully increase voter turnout? Mr. Kasakian, your 1-minute response, please.
Well, first of all, that's an excellent question because we're constantly facing budget cuts, and unfortunately, in city government, elections are probably the lowest funded priority. That is a misfortune, and it's one that I hope that councils in the future will work to correct. We spend less per voter on elections than on any other service, and it's the foundation of our democratic process. But what we've done is we've recruited poll workers from the community college locally. We have a record number of student poll workers from our local high schools in this election, and we continue to find ways to reach out to the public. We have very successful public service announcements now that are in 4 languages, the 4 most common languages spoken in our city, and we continue to do outreach and collaborate with other cities, including Santa Clarita and Pasadena and Burbank, to see where we can share resources, including recruitment of poll workers.
Thank you. Ms. Landrigan, your 30-second response, please.
I believe that we can increase voter turnout by having partnerships with many of the service organizations, going and reaching out and asking them to help us with voter registration. I also believe that our ballots, the actual ballot, not the sample ballot, could be improved and better to read, and that would increase voter turnout and comfort in actually filling out that ballot.
Thank you. The next question will be directed to Ms. Landrigan. In recent years, information technology has brought significant changes to the maintenance of information and documentation. How strong is existing public records management in the Glendale City Clerk's office? Are improvements necessary? Please explain. Ms. Landrigan, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you very much. Information technology has truly advanced. The city's clerk's office has been actively digitizing and bringing our archives up to date and online. However, there are other more secure ways that we can look at. There's laser fiche, there are blue ray encryptions that can happen to our documents. The security of the documents is what the technology really has to deal with. How are our documents most secure? How are our police documents? How are all of the documents that should be part of the city's permanent record secured? As technology advances, it is imminent that we have in our budget upgrades to the technology so that we maintain the most secure system possible within the city.
Thank you. Mr. Kasakian, your 30-second response.
We do as Ms. Landrigan noted, have made numerous advances. We do have secure electronic document management. Laserfish, by the way, a private company which Ms. Landrigan cites on her website, you misspelled their name. I suggest you correct it. We use FileNet instead, which is an IBM subsidiary. They're one of the largest. Most cities actually use FileNet, and it is a very robust system. The issue is to make sure that all the departments are on the same page, and we're actively working towards that.
Thank you. The next question will be directed to Mr. Kasakian. What responsibility does the city clerk's office have to monitor the required disclosure of personal financial information by certain office holders and city appointees? Is the process working as it should? Mr. Kasakian, your 1-minute response, please.
Well, the statements of economic interest, which everyone is required to file if they fit into a specific category, we do oversee the completion of those forms and also the filing of them. That is done through our office. It's one of the things that we're proud to do and provide that information to the public so people understand that we are a city that has a fair play culture here at City Hall. Is it adequate? I believe it was, but we've improved upon it. We just signed a contract with SouthTech, a company that does that digitally and electronically. So now people can be able to access that information from home, and the personal information that should be redacted will be redacted, because we don't want to put on the internet, especially in an era where there's identity theft, we don't want to put people's personal information out there in the World Wide Web. That is why we signed a contract with SouthTech, and we're going to be proud to launch it coming the end of this April.
Thank you. Ms. Landrigan, your 30-second response, please.
Your question was, is the clerk's office monitoring the requested disclosure statements of economic interest? And I believe that that really is difficult to do, to track that if you are the clerk. I do believe, though, that recently the clerk has sent out not the most recent 700 forms, and that is an issue I think needs to be addressed.
Thank you. The next question will be directed to Ms. Landrigan. Question 5. How important are management skills and experience for an individual serving as the Glendale City Clerk? Please explain. Ms. Landrigan, you have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you very much. I have 20 years of management skills. I have worked for government agencies. I have also skills as a commissioner, running meetings, interacting with the public. I believe they're very important. I don't think they're the reason this office is elected. They are a very high-functioning management office. It has critical elements and deadlines, Secretary of State requirements, municipal and state laws that require that posting of agendas happen. So I believe that the management of this office is a very high-level management office, but it is not the reason that this post is elected, and that is because it's the election official.
Thank you. Mr. Kasakian, your 30-second response, please.
I believe management is important in the city clerk's office as it is in any of the departments. The city clerk's office functions as a department in conjunction with all the others. I have the track record, the proven track record, the requisite education. I'm a certified municipal clerk. I have my bachelor's degree from UCLA. I've completed the Harvard Kennedy School program for the state and local officials, as well as I'm a Coro Public Affairs Fellow, and I'm currently completing my master's in Public Policy and Administration from Northwestern University.
Thank you. The next question will be directed to Mr. Kasakian. Question 6. Do you believe that the office of city clerk should be subject to term limits? Please explain. Your 1 minute response, please.
City clerk's office is one of those unique positions, as I just stated in my previous answer, that actually oversees staff and is a full-time position. Whereas term limits may be appropriate for a legislative body that comes in with a specific agenda and a specific policy and a mandate of the voters, the city clerk's office has to manage staff and has to ensure a continuous high level of efficiency in providing services to the public. In our city clerk's office, when I first started, we had 13 employees. Today we have 7. That's a 45% reduction in staff. If you were to reduce that further by 15-20% in reduction of staff, or by switching, having a 20% turnover by continuously bringing in someone new, you lose a lot of the institutional memory that helps make this office function properly.
Thank you. Ms. Landrigan, your 30-second response, please.
I don't believe that this office should be subject to term limits. I believe that term limits do not necessarily take into account the intelligence of the voting public. I believe if an individual is not qualified or does not perform, that the public needs to take note and to remove that individual from office. I also believe that the fact that this is an office that oversees staff and that it requires continually improving yourself and maintaining an educational advancement that is to the advantage of the office.
Thank you. The next question will be directed to Ms. Landrigan. In the area of campaign finance reform, how could the reporting of campaign contributions during Glendale elections be improved? Ms. Landrigan, your 1-minute response, please.
Well, at the moment, the city has implemented NetFile. It's really kind of a miserable system at the moment, although I think it's a great attempt to have it online so that individuals can fill it in. Most people have their treasurer fill it out. Unfortunately, I am my treasurer, so I can tell you personally that the last filing, I was unable to get it in by time, and I had to print it out and bring it in person. That is one of the areas where I think that having a digital and a technological ability to have it up quickly is a great improvement, but I think that having it implemented as the only method during a campaign is very difficult for the campaign of whoever is running, including the clerk's office. I'm sure they've had the same problems. I do think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Mr. Kasakian, your 30-second response, please.
NetFile not only is a great idea, not only does it reduce the amount of paper that we use, but it actually works. And I know because I used it, and when I used it, Ms. Landrigan, it worked. So I apologize if you had some difficulties with that. But it's also, NetFile is not miserable because it is the Secretary of State's approved system, and it's one of the widest and most popular systems available out there. We did a request for a proposal. They met all of the standards, and we're hoping that we can educate and train people to be able to use it more effectively. And I assure you that in the coming weeks, people will be able to access whatever information they want digitally and online.
Thank you. The next question will be directed to Mr. Kasakian. What do you believe to be the most important duty of the city clerk's office? Mr. Kasakian, your 1-minute response, please.
I think the most important duty of the city clerk's office is to instill in people a faith about their local government and to continue to be that bridge between local government and the people whom it serves. And that takes on many facets. It includes being the custodian of the public record. It includes being the parliamentarian here in these very council chambers where we congregate every Tuesday to deliberate the issues that are important to us, to our communities, and to our neighborhoods, and of course to run the elections. But if you don't have a city clerk who is engaged with the public, who understands the community, you have a severance of that relationship. City clerk in Glendale has to be continuously engaged and involved and understand the public it serves, and the public needs to continue to have faith in their government through the honest and transparent and accessible work of a city clerk.
Thank you. Ms. Landrigan, your 30-second response, please.
I believe the city clerk's most important function is that of the election official. And there are other very critical elements of this office, but being the election official every 4 years, starting all of your, every 2 years, thank you for that correction, I know that, is to advance, to do it in a more timely manner so that all of your expectations of ballots receiving are happening in a timely manner. That's a very important function.
Thank you. We will now conclude with a 1-minute closing statement from each candidate, beginning with Ms. Landrigan.
Thank you again to the League. My 20 years of management experience, my volunteer service as a city commissioner, my energy, integrity, and commitment are what I will bring to this office. I will conduct transparent elections, track the mail-in ballot, and advertise to recruit voters. I receive a yearly job performance review at UCLA. The clerk is only reviewed every 4 years through the election office. This election is about job performance. I ask for your vote on April 2nd. Stephanie Landrigan, candidate for city clerk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Kasakian, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. I just want to note that we do run transparent elections. The ballots are safe, the vote is secure, and to suggest otherwise is tantamount to yelling fire in a crowded movie theater. Glendale is a great city, and I'm proud to have called it home for the last 27 years. I want to make sure that we continue being great and the envy of all the cities around us. I've brought this passion to work with me every day for the last 8 years and every Tuesday right here in these chambers as I've run the council meetings and helped make our local government accessible to all. As I stated before, I'm qualified, experienced, and knowledgeable, and I'm a certified municipal clerk. My track record speaks for itself. That is why I'm endorsed by Congressman Adam Schiff, Supervisor Mike Antonovich, Mayor Frank Quintero, and a number of other organizations and individuals who are community leaders. In closing, I want to say that now is not the time for us to go backwards. We need to continue moving forward, and I hope that I can earn your vote. Vote Artie Kasakian on April 2nd, and vote me for City Clerk to continue serving the great city that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you. That now concludes the City Clerk portion of the Candidates Forum. We will now take a short intermission and resume with the Candidates Forum for the Glendale City Council. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rita Zwerng, and I will be the moderator for this portion of the evening's forum. The forum will be televised live and then repeated at subsequent times on Glendale TV 6. No reproduction or rebroadcast of this forum may be made without the written permission of the League of Women Voters. No digital recording is permitted in these chambers. The audience here tonight is invited to submit written questions for the candidates. Please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question, and one of the monitors will provide you with a card and pencil. Questions will only be collected during the opening statements, and the first round of questions. We would like to request that the audience turn off all cell phones and pagers, and that they refrain from applauding or otherwise disrupting the forum. If a candidate's supporters cause disruptions during another candidate's remarks, the other candidate will be given additional time to compensate for the interruption. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for an opening statement. Following this, I will ask questions submitted by the audience and the public. The candidates will be divided into 3 groups of 4 and are seated in ballot order. The first candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the first question. The second, third, and fourth candidates will then have 1 minute each to respond to the same question. The second question will then be addressed to the fifth candidate, who will have 2 minutes to respond, followed by 1 minute responses by the sixth and seventh candidates and eighth candidates. The third question will then be addressed to the ninth candidate, who will have 2 minutes to respond, followed by 1 minute responses by the 10th, 11th, and 12th candidates. We will return to the fourth candidate for the fourth question, and thereon. There will be 12 questions in all, and each candidate will have a chance to respond first. At the end of the question period, the candidates will be given 2 minutes each to respond, if they wish, to any question which they did not have the opportunity to respond to during the questioning. Following the question period, the candidates will be given 1 minute each for a closing statement. Our timekeepers will alert candidates to the time remaining with signs of 1 minute and 30 seconds and a stop sign when they are out of time. Attacks of a personal nature, including private matters having no bearing on a candidate's public persona or ability to perform the duties of the office in a competent, ethical manner, will not be tolerated. If a candidate makes a personal attack during his remarks, the time required for me to interrupt the candidate and remind him of the rule will be taken from his own speaking time. I'd like to begin by introducing the candidates for the City Council in ballot order. Jefferson Black, Rick Barnes, Edith Fuentes, Laura Friedman, Ara Najarian, Zari Sinanian, Mike Mohill, Herbert Molano, Avram Kazazian, Jahe Koroglian, Roland Kadikian, Sam Engel. We will now begin with opening statements. Mr. Black, your opening statement, please.
Good evening. I was born in Motor City, Detroit, raised in outside Capitol Hill. I attended prep school in the Commonwealth of Virginia, graduated with a BA from Tulane University. After college, I started my own small business. Upon relocating here, I've been employed as a teacher and a tutor. I'm a community activist and Adams Hill resident for almost 20 years, serving several of those years as Neighborhood Watch block captain and also as a board member of the Adams Hill Homeowners Association. Not long ago, I overheard a woman at a Trader Joe's dissing Glendale. It was pretty disheartening. But Glendale has lost its luster, and I aim to get it back. And it boasts a rich history, this community. I mean, it's where John Wayne grew up. It's where Amelia Earhart earned her wings. It's where most of the DreamWorks and Disney magic is conjured up. But Glendale is in crisis. One of the issues that makes me irate is why does the LA side of my neighborhood repave their street every 3 years? They can afford this, but on my Glendale side, after 20 years, not once. Not once. So we've lost the money from the redevelopment fund, and now the city's contemplating a business tax, a spike in GWP fees to take up the slack. Why does my house value keep going down and my property taxes keep going up and up? You know, why are there only less than 500 homes and businesses on the solar clock when clearly electricity is an old-timey technology that needs replacing or updating? Let's update, enable GWP to pump some money into solar or non-electrical sources of energy instead of simply shuttling cash to the to the city general fund. Anyway, it's these issues and more that need to be resolved by the next city council, and help me get the community back on track. Together we'll mold a brighter, greener Glendale. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes, your opening statement, please.
Good evening, taxpayers and Mom. I'm Rick Barnes. I've lived, worked, invested in Glendale for the past 40 years. I'm a realtor of the last 35 years, and I've sold over 2,700 different properties in our community. I know what makes Glendale great. My children have attended the Glendale Public Schools. I'm a passionate advocate for the city of Glendale. I'm running for council because the last few years have been difficult to witness, not because of the economy. That's been tough on a lot of us. But I've watched some of our city council members mismanage the city, its developments, the taking of property rights, driving hardworking taxpayers and their businesses out, squandering the utility funds, then telling us everything is just positive, wonderful, budget is balanced, money in the bank. Oh, I'm sorry, we got to have a little charter correction because of the accounting irregularities. Taxpayers, stop this council train. Make more taxes, more utility fees, more regulations. More of the same isn't going to cover it. I, as your city councilman, will bring common sense. I, as your councilman, will bring true accountability. And I, as your councilman, will bring fiscal transparency to our city council, us, the taxpayers. If you agree with this, then I need your vote. Help put Glendale back on track. We can get started the day we are sworn in to office. Again, towards the city we love and trust. Every penny counts. I'll do that. I'm Rick Barnes. I'm number 2 on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fuentes, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you to everyone for being here, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting the forum. I hope you will hear tonight things that will lead you to select and decide who among us candidates will be the best for the city and to represent all of you. I honestly can say I deeply care for this community. I am running for Glendale City Council because I want to continue serving this city that I have lived and worked in for 20 years. What matters to all of you is important to me, and what's important to you matters to me. Tonight, you will hear about budget, pension, transparency, accountability, and all those words. So let me give you a visual rendering of the Fuentes theory of the inverted triangle of Glendale city government. 9-10 years ago, we had a true triangle. We had a department director, assistant director, a couple of division heads, and general employees. Everybody was happy. We were processing more plans and applications in less amount of time with smaller fees. Currently, what we have is this inverted triangle. We have a department director, an executive department director, several assistant directors, division heads, senior supervisors, principal supervisors, and general employee. You decide. We are now processing less applications in longer amount of time with exorbitant fees. And I'm hoping that on April 2nd, you will punch number 3 on your ballot for Edith Fuentes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting these forums, and I'd like to thank everyone at home who's watching this for your engagement and your interest. My name's Laura Friedman, and I'm a small business owner. I'm also a former motion picture executive, but the proudest thing that I've done in my life is to represent you for the last 4 years on the Glendale City Council. When I was elected in 2009, I was elected into very challenging times. The recession brought the city an unprecedented drop in revenue as sales tax decreased and property tax revenue decreased. And yet, this city has been able to maintain excellent services over the last 4 years, the type of services that the people of Glendale demand. And we've done that through a few different things, and through really a lot of hard work and a lot of facing the issues head on. We have enacted real and meaningful pension reform in the city by lowering pension payouts, by increasing the amount of money that our employees pay towards their pensions, and in some cases by reducing salaries. We've also enacted performance-based budgeting, which holds our department heads accountable every quarter for the performance of their department. I have been, through my record in the last 4 years on council, and also through the 5 years I spent on the Design Review Board, I've shown my commitment to maintaining and preserving the things that we love about our city: open space, our wonderful historic neighborhoods, and our reputation as a very low-crime city. And yet I've also shown a commitment to changing the things that need improvement, like traffic safety, like our commitment to the arts, which has been a priority for me in the last 4 years. So I'd like to thank the community for the last 4 years for their support and their encouragement and their cooperation, because it really is a cooperation, and what I do on council really is a reflection of the community's desires and the community's needs. And you have been partners with me in this for the past 4 years, and I thank you for that. I look forward to tonight's dialogue. I'm interested to hear what all of the other candidates have to say, and again, thank you to the League.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. My name is Ara Najarian, and I've served on the City Council for 8 years, and 2 of those years as mayor. Glendale is a great city, and don't let anyone up here tell you otherwise. In fact, Glendale is a premier city, and I'm proud that I live here. I'm even more proud that you and I have made Glendale a great city. We have virtually stopped all the development in the hillsides. We needed a new swimming pool. I told you we would get one, and we did. We just opened Glendale Riverwalk Park. We've opened Cedar Park and Doran Gardens Park. We've remodeled Maple Park and Griffith Manor Park. And I pushed for tough, new parks and library impact fees, so developers that come into this city will have to pay their fair share of the development of our parks and libraries. I've worked hard to pass a strict campaign ethics reform law and campaign finance reform package. We've brought a Bloomingdale's and a new Nordstrom's downtown to make it exciting, and other great shops and restaurants are on their way. And we have protected our beautiful neighborhoods and architecture by creating historic districts to preserve them. I sit on the MTA board, and on that board I've brought millions of dollars to Glendale for our Beeline bus service and our roadway improvements, and soon a transit line connecting Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena. I'm working to make all of our rail crossings safe and hopefully create a quiet zone so those train engineers don't have to blast those horns. I'm fighting the completion of the 710 tunnel because nothing is going to affect us more than that tunnel being completed. I'm endorsed by Glendale Fire and Police, the Association of Realtors, and the Sierra Club, and I ask for one of your 3 votes on April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sinanian, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. Good evening. My name is Zara Sinanian. Some of you may not know me, but I hope that over the course of this campaign and beyond, I have an opportunity to speak to each and every one of you about our homes, our neighborhoods, and about all those issues that impact our lives as Glendale residents. Although I've been a civil litigator for 12 years, the passion for public service has been a part of my life throughout my adulthood. Despite my somewhat hectic life, I have 4 children. I've remained engaged in community organizations and city commissions because I really love this city. I think Glendale can do better. I've been a Parks Commissioner for 2 years, and I have been a CDBG Commissioner for 4 years, which I chaired from 2009 through 2011. And while it may be hard to believe, during my chairmanship, every vote taken has been unanimous. Because I don't just think we can do better, I know we can do better. Because I'm a consensus builder, and for me, what matters are not politics, but the actual issues, and working together to make Glendale the best city that it can possibly be. And with your help and support, I can get us there. My name appears 6th on the ballot, and I hope that I can gain your votes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill, your opening statement, please.
I'd like to thank the League for inviting me to this forum tonight. Like many of you, our families moved to Glendale for its character, generous open space, small town environment for raising children and developing lifelong friendships. Glendale has always had a reputation for our quality of life. Yet, in just the last 4 years, many of the things that make our city so special are being lost. Traffic gridlock, overdevelopment, permit fee increases, water rate increases, and after the election, electrical rate increases. As a council member, with your vote, I will stop these and work to bring back and protect the quality of life we used to all enjoy. For example, always keep public safety our highest priority. Fight for the taxpayers. Decrease water and electrical rates. Stop increasing our debt with costly municipal bonds. Stop new assessment district taxes. Help the city become more business-friendly. And finally, eliminate completely parking variances to mega complexes without exception. Thank you. My name is Mike Mohill. I'm number 7 on your ballot.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, your opening statement, please.
Thank you and good evening. This experience today, for those of you who are here and for those of you who are watching, is the essential American experience. I, like many of you here today, am an immigrant. My family came to the United States 50 years ago, and my brother, my sister, and I took a significant benefit by coming to the United States, partaking of its public schools, partaking of its public colleges, and making a life of ourselves. 26 years ago, I came to Glendale to do several things: to invest in Glendale, to build a business, and build and raise a family. And so I am the beneficiary of all of the work that has been done by so many Glendalians in the past. I benefit from the quality schools. I benefit from the open spaces. I benefit from so many things and so many sacrifices that many of you have made. But 12 years ago, I found myself in a problem. Reluctantly, I became involved in city affairs due to a property rights issue, and I began to look deeply into Glendale's activities and into its finances. And I began advocating for prudent government. I began advocating for transparency, that the information that I began to see on the financial statements could be reported to the public. But I wasn't treated correctly. I was dismissed, I was berated, I was embarrassed, and the more that I looked into the city finances, the more troubled I became. The city began to attack Proposition 13, a constitutional law that I feel is one of the best things that have happened to us in California, and yet I continue to look for different ways in which we can improve our quality of life. Today, you're going to hear different perceptions of that situation for Glendale, and it is up to you to make a really wise decision to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gazazian, your opening statement, please.
Yes, I thank the League of Women Voters for inviting all of us here, by the way. We do appreciate that. My name is Aram Kazazian. I am a licensed architect in the state of California. I came over here to California about 50 years ago, and I've lived in Glendale for 39 years now. As a licensed architect, I had to fulfill all the requirements of the code requires. But unfortunately, that's not where we're getting today. We have mega buildings with insufficient parking. We have mega buildings with no landscaping going on, which is a detriment to our city. We do have a, sorry, okay? It's on.
Put it closer. Closer.
Okay. All right, I'll start. Okay, my name is Aram Kazazian. Is that better now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, my family moved here about 50 years ago, almost 50 years ago now, and we've lived in Glendale. I've lived in Glendale for 39 years. I am a graduate of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo University, and I moved here back in 1971, and I've been practicing licensed architecture for all this time. I have a family. I have 6 children, and I teach them all to live here and work over here. I've been a member of American Institute of Architects. I've been a member of the Building Industry Association, Glendale Chamber of Commerce, Armenian Chamber of Commerce, Armenian Professional Society, Glendale Association for Retarded, Glendale Sunrise Rotary, National Home Improvement Council, National Association of Home Builders, and many, many more. I do have my brochure out there. You can look at it. What I'm concerned about is our utilities. Utilities have gone skyrocketed in fees, and we can't afford it. Our children, especially schools, cannot afford to pay what's going on. The reckless spending of city council has caused those utilities to go up. It's not from the water rates going up, but it's from the reckless spendings. Thank you.
Mr. Karaglian, your opening statement, please.
Good evening. My name is Shahai Karolian, and I thank the League for organizing this forum, and my regrets for missing several forums due to a severe flu from which I'm still trying to recover. I should have listened to my wife and taken the flu shot, but I did not. Nevertheless, for many years I have been an advocate for environmental, economic, and societal justice at grassroots level. During the last 30 years of service in the Glendale community in both private and public sectors, and currently serving as a design review board member, I have always supported the full participation in civic life of all concerned stakeholders, especially encouraging those who have often been denied or have isolated themselves from full participation in decisions that impact their lives and the lives of their children. Today, we have a large segment of population whose interests have not been actively promoted or protected. Open space in many neighborhoods is inadequate. Traffic congestion in some areas and traffic safety in others don't yet have a satisfactory solution. We need to promote employment for youth and job fairs for unemployed adults. If we control the hyper-growth in expenses and a top-heavy city government, we restore the programs that will lead to a safer city and an improved quality of life. When elected, jobs would be my #1 priority. That means promoting job fairs, attracting growing companies with well-paying jobs, creating the conditions to engage our youth with income opportunities and to keep them out of trouble, and in addition to supporting small businesses. These are the concerns of mine which I want to address and accomplish during my term in office. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kadikian, your opening statement, please.
Thank you to the League, and thank you to the viewing public for being interested and watching us here. My name is Roland Kadikian. I am a resident of Glendale for 15 years, and currently I am a bankruptcy attorney. The reason I got involved in this race is because I was concerned about the finances of the city. I know that does not mean much up front, so I'd like to give you a little bit of background about myself so that you understand where I'm coming from and what I hope to accomplish. My career started as an engineer. After that, I went and worked for the Jet Propulsion Labs. And over there, you learn if you want your mission to be successful, you have to have a long-term plan, you have to be ready for contingencies, and your number must add up. And that's the problem that I saw with Glendale. Lack of long-term plan. Our plan currently is year to year. If we have the budget, we hire employees. If we don't have budgets, we cut services and we cut employees. That is not how you can run a city that has a 700 million citywide budget. The second problem I see is lack of contingencies. Whenever we lost the redevelopment money, we did not know what to do. Even though when we were getting the redevelopment money, we continued to siphon money from GWP. That is not being ready. We are spending everything we are getting. Last thing is, we have unfunded pension liabilities that keep rising. In 2005, they were 75 million, and currently they are 226 million. Currently, I'm a bankruptcy attorney, and I help people deal with financial situations. And should you choose to elect me, I will bring my combined knowledge in engineering and law so that we can come to a solution and solve the problems that Glendale faces and move us forward for a better future, one that empowers the citizens and that does not burden them.
Thank you. Mr. Engel, your opening statement, please.
Thank you, and thanks to the League of Women Voters of Glendale and Burbank for putting together this televised forum. As I looked around as everybody was speaking before me tonight as the last person on the ballot, this is the first time all 12 of us have been together at a forum, so this is kind of a special night for all of us. I appreciate everybody's interest in coming out in the audience and everybody who's watching, because you will be informed voters after all you hear all of this. I'm going to spend most of my speaking time tonight talking about what I will do, not talking about the past, either positively or negatively. Before I retired last year after a career in public service, I started to have concerns about how we as the City of Glendale were providing services, how things might not have been up to the professional pride that we might have had in the public service when I first started. And since retiring, I've had a couple of experiences that validated those concerns. And I felt that I needed to add my voice to the City Council so that we can continue to make this city the special place and providing those types of services that we have all come to expect. My 6 priorities that I decided when I decided to run start like this: protecting our neighborhoods, as a City Council being responsible stewards for the public trust that we have both financially and with the city's assets. We should always be looking to see how we can work with others, whether it's amongst ourselves on the dais or with other agencies to partner to do good things for Glendale. We should restore and strengthen our water and power department. You've heard a lot of people talk about that. I have a vision for that, building on what we've done and what we do in the future. And finally, making sure our economic development efforts produce high-wage jobs. But running for council is more than just a platform. You should be looking for other things like leadership, the ability to do the job if you're elected, and so forth. I need your vote to be able to be that kind of council member. My name is the last name on the ballot, but as you pull it out, it should be the first box you check. Remember, Sam Engel for Glendale City Council.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question period. The first question will be directed first to Mr. Black. Although progress has been made in pension reform, many are concerned that more needs to be done. Please explain ideas that you could support regarding pension reform. Mr. Black, your 2-minute response, please.
Well, I have a friend back east that works for the government. He said that it's pretty much impossible for him to get fired from his job. He'd have to do something outrageous. I don't think there's any easy answer to that. I think we need to look at all the jobs that are expendable and seriously consider downsizing those jobs or having them retire early. And the question was about how do you reform?
Pension reform. Pension reform.
Well, I read not too long ago that a 45-year-old could get a job in the state of California at a state penitentiary as a prison guard and retire in 5 years at the age of 50 and have pension for the rest of his life at over $100,000. Maybe we shouldn't tell our kids to be lawyers and doctors. Maybe they should be prison guards. So I definitely think there's no quick solution to that, but I would seriously think we should look at that because it doesn't really happen in the private sector. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes, your 1-minute response, please.
Okay. First, I think that we have an accountability problem with this whole thing is that several of our council members were there when they passed the rules to expand the pension, reverse the pension back 30 years, some things like that. So we've lost track of how that is occurring. Now the state of California has made some mandates through the courts So I think at some point, we may have to just statewide put a memorandum or a ordinance, government intervention on the pensions themselves, do it statewide. Gray Davis did it for us and put us in this position, and we fell right into the same trap. Something has to be on a state level, and I would be encouraged to do that. Negotiate, renegotiate all those pensions.
Thank you. Ms. Fuentes, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. I'd like to take a closer look at the big and major departments that are siphoning a lot of our salaries and pension money. There are a lot of unnecessary waste and spending. I'm gonna say no more debts. We live within our means. We cannot spend money we don't have or revenues we don't take in. A lot of overtimes are also wasted on some of those mismanaged departments, and several layers of management or managers are not even fully reviewed and not supposed to be there. So I will take a closer look at some of those expenditures. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman, your 1-minute response, please.
Sure, and certainly we can always do more in this field, and we can continue to negotiate with our employees, and we need to. But in the past 4 years, we have done quite a lot. Many years ago, our employees were paying between 7 and 8% towards their pensions every month, and now our employees pay out of their pocket every month between 11 and 12% of their paycheck towards their pensions. Now, they pay all of what's supposed to be, all of their share, and they also pay a very large portion of what's supposed to be the employer's share of the pension payments. And very few cities have that. In most cities, the employers, being the city, pays for that whole share. So Glendale's way ahead of the curve by most cities. In fact, when Governor Brown recently passed his pension reform package, it didn't have much effect on Glendale because we were there ahead of them. We had already enacted so much pension reform that was virtually meaningless to our city. Of course, we do have more to do. We'll continue to work with that, and I think that our employees, for the most part, have been our partners in this, although we did impose pay cuts on our largest groups. We have taken this very seriously, and our employee groups know that we've taken this very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Mr. Najarian. What is your position on amending the current smoking ordinance to ban smoking within all apartments in Glendale and to provide for a private cause of action for enforcement? Mr. Najarian, your 2-minute response, please.
I am in favor of having smoke-free apartments. I think it is a wise decision for the health of the residents, especially the children that live in those apartments. However, the problem in this type of ordinance is the enforcement. Whether it's a private right of enforcement, which means that your neighbor gets to run down to the courthouse to obtain an injunction or a writ against you, or even if it's one of our own inspectors that has to go out and apprehend a smoker. This is the real difficulty in these type of ordinances. Many other cities that have instituted these citywide bans on smoking in apartment buildings have run into the problems. We have to craft a ordinance where neighbors don't have to be calling in the police on their neighbors. So in that regard, it may be better to create zones within apartment buildings, wings, locations, or designated units where smoking is permitted. Otherwise, the enforcement of this is going to be a nightmare. It's not a practical way to address the issue, although the act of smoking in an apartment, I think, is a very unhealthful and unwise habit to perform.
Thank you. Mr. Sinanian, your 1-minute response, please.
I'm not a smoker, and neither one of my parents smoked. I believe it's an unhealthy habit. However, there's something fundamentally un-American about setting such tight boundaries on individuals as to what they can do in terms of a non-illegal activity in their own homes. And then there is, of course, the matters that the other candidate talked about in terms of how do you enforce something like that. I think it would open a Pandora's box, It's a very unhealthy step. It's a slippery slope because it's fine for apartment owners or building owners to designate certain apartments as non-smoking. Everyone has notice, and that's fine. But to ban wholesale smoking in your own abode is, I'm very uncomfortable with that.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill, your 1-minute response, please.
I remember when the smoking ordinance first came before the city council, it was quite controversial. This room was twice as full with people as it is tonight. I think the smoking ordinance is a good ordinance. I'm a reformer smoker myself. Enforcement is very difficult. But I think we ought to have, the goal is to have smoke-free apartments and condos, totally. Not half one wing and half the other wing, or having a restaurant. This restaurant is half smoking, half is non-smoking. Either be total one way or the other. Half doesn't work, because people who do not smoke not want to smell the drift of smoke. Okay,
Thank you. Mr. Milano, your 1-minute response, please.
I think that there is a difference between creating a government that is punitive and controlling to one where you actually try to involve the community into creating its own solutions. That's a big difference. I'm an apartment owner in the city of Glendale. I'm a board member of the Apartment Association, and we have discussed this at length significantly. I can tell you that personally, I have an apartment building that is 100% smoke-free. But it wasn't done through any type of threats, and it wasn't done through any type of government action. It entailed personal involvement in encouraging my tenants to stop smoking and go into anti-secession type programs. And that's what the community needs. We need a government that engages from the very beginning students, the parents of those students, the grandparents of those students, and create the kind of environment where we actually remove the habit of smoking away from our communities and our buildings. But this entails a change in the way we look at government, and that is my approach.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Mr. Kazazian. Digital billboards will soon be coming to Glendale neighborhoods, and the City Council anticipates additional revenue to the city from them. What are your concerns, if any, about the impact of digital billboards on Glendale neighborhoods? Mr. Kazazian, your 2-minute response, please.
Okay. I have a problem. Many years ago, we had number of billboards, and Glendale started looking very ugly, very unsightly. We had them over every single building had them. People had put poles up to put billboards in, and that environment is not a proper environment. Then we fought for a sign ordinance. We brought a sign ordinance that was really good, and it was okay because the private industry is the one lost the money to take those billboards out. Now, the city, Glendale, wants to bring the billboards in. Digital or non-digital, they're not appropriate for our city. And I'm against that totally. I don't think we should have that. We paid a lot of money to get those billboards removed. We paid hundreds of thousands of dollars of fees of our taxpayers' money to get them removed. Now, because it's okay for the city to gonna make the money, but it wasn't okay for the private industry to make the money. So something's wrong in the calculation right there. So we need to have an equal for all people. And if you want a billboards, maybe we should go to Las Vegas. They have a lot of billboards there. But, and we don't have the power here. We're complaining we don't have no electricity, we have no water, and the residents are going to increase the electrical rates up, skyrocketing to hit the people because we have no electricity. And yet, we're going to bring billboards. We're going to bring over 2,000 units in downtown Glendale area where it takes landfills are going to be damaged. We're going to have a water shortage. We don't have water to supply them. And why are we doing that? Why are we bringing billboards? It's going to take more power to run those. I'm against that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Curlian, your 1-minute response, please.
I certainly hope that we don't get billboards that advertise casinos in Glendale, but aside from that, we talk about adding revenue to our budget. Well, there has to be something that needs to be coming in. We can't just stay on cutting the budget, laying off employees. We have to work on attracting new businesses. And in this case, with this venture, if the city government is going to make any revenues, then, and if it does not impact the quality of life of the neighborhoods where the billboards go up, then I do not have any problems with that.
Thank you. Mr. Kadikian, your 1-minute response, please.
Whenever there's possibility of generating revenue, it's such a tempting proposal that in financial difficult times, we eagerly jump on it. But I think overall, we should have a vision of what Glendale should be. If we want it to look like Las Vegas, then definitely billboards should come in. And the community should speak to the council and tell us how they want Glendale to look. And once we have an understanding of how Glendale should be, accordingly, we should make decisions whether billboards should come in or not. It should not be about money always. Money is a great temptation, but we should look at what we want Glendale to represent to everybody and what kind of quality of life we want to present to our residents. At this point, I just do not see billboard coherent with current vision that we have for Glendale.
Thank you. Mr. Engel, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. As the person who was responsible for the last 11 years of getting rid of some 70 billboards, I find it kind of an interesting turnaround. And I want to give some context. As the city has had a plan since about 1978 to eliminate billboards from the community at a variety of different places, and we've been very successful at doing that. When we come up with the proposal to consider digital billboards, I think we ought to look to our neighboring city of Los Angeles and look at the wonderful experience they've had with digital billboards in their community. I do think that there is an opportunity to do something that's a little bit different than none of the other candidates answered about. I think we are a little bit unique in that our commercial areas are primarily away from the freeway. And it is very difficult to promote our own brand boulevard of cars, the Galleria and the Americana, to people who are driving by Glendale. I think there's opportunities to do single-use types of signs for those kind of things, but not digital billboards. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Mr. Barnes. Currently, only one council member lives south of the 134 freeway. Should something be done to address this situation? And if so, what? Mr. Barnes, your 2-minute response, please.
Which freeway?
Well, as a councilman, I believe it's the at-large that we have currently. And I actually believe that is a responsibility for every councilman. And I would take that responsibility on. I'm already knocking on doors down there. I own properties in South Glendale. I manage properties in South Glendale and in North Glendale. West Glendale, East Glendale. So it's one of being in those areas and meeting the people to just find out what their needs are. It's just talking to your neighbors. And I think that's one of the problems that I see with some of our council members right now is that they aren't talking, they aren't getting involved in those communities. Some of the door knocking I've been doing right now, they're saying that people have come down to South Glendale and they've never come back. Once they're elected, they forget about some of the things they were doing. The police department came in and they did an open house. They took in information, they came down for 1 week, and then they left, and they haven't been back to help service the locations of what they were doing. So by getting that input, I think it becomes apparent that we need to be there. That's what I'm looking at, and I would be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fuentes, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. We're almost looking at redistricting if that's one of the concerns. Unfortunately, I think it is better to have a citywide representation at City Council, regardless of where the council members live. I would say it's better to be represented by 5 different council members. Then you know you are looking at 5 people who will hear your side of the story before making a decision, versus 1 city council member that may be representing you. I think it's better to encourage dialogue with several constituents or people who may be wanting to run for city council, give some education, reach out to everyone in the community, and make it a good experience to be part of the city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. Right now, I consider myself representing all of Glendale, and that all of Glendale's constituents are equally my constituents. I wouldn't want to create a situation where we had fiefdoms, where each council member felt that they had to fight for resources for a particular area. I think we need to work in cooperation, and we've done a good job at that. And if you look at where the money has gone in the last 4 years, quite a lot of it has gone to South Glendale. Pacific Park and Pool was one of our largest capital investments. That's in South Glendale. We're about to build a new park on Maryland in South Glendale. We're about to improve Palmer Park significantly. That's in South Glendale. We're about to undergo a major renovation of our Central Library, which is also in South Glendale. We're doing repaving Central Avenue. We're doing water main improvements in Adams Hill, which is in South Glendale. So we've been able to work cooperatively as a council because we don't have those fiefdoms. I understand the desire for some people for districts, but I think that it wouldn't serve us as well as the at-large system that we currently have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Black, your 1-minute response, please.
Well, I live in Southern Glendale, so I kind of know the ragtag, rum-dum, sort of condominiumization there in the past. They have a big, like, 6-story building that's going to be built there, which they say is a good thing, but for me, I think it's going to cause more traffic problems and things. But no, I mean, I understand if one section of Glendale needs to have a facelift, I would definitely agree, but yes, everyone needs to be treated fairly at every sector of Glendale. But yes, the southern section, you know, if one section needs to be revamped and there's the money there to do it, yes, let's do it.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Mr. Sinanian. How has the state's elimination of redevelopment agencies impacted the city of Glendale? And what alternatives should be considered to achieve some of the proper goals of redevelopment in a city like Glendale? Mr. Sinanian, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. Well, redevelopment funds were very important for the purpose that they were intended to be used. Unfortunately, the city appears to have developed a habit, a taste for those redevelopment funds, and the monies were not necessarily used for the purposes for which they were intended. And this is a thread that runs through Glendale's history of the past 10 years. Certain funds that come into the city are treated as slush funds. They're treated as sources with which to supplement the budget, whether the general budget, and as a result, once those funds are taken away, as the redevelopment funds were, there's a huge gap that needs to be filled afterwards. Now, we have the same situation with CDBG funds right now, same situation with the electricity fees, water fees before that. How do we prevent that from happening? What we need to do is improve the business atmosphere in Glendale, make sure that the stigma of Glendale being a business-unfriendly city is removed so that the word is out there that we are here, we're open, we're going to treat everyone fairly, we're going to streamline the bureaucratic process and attract business. Also, each council member, I believe, has the obligation to act as an advocate for the city in terms of going out there and finding those businesses, finding those investments that are willing or can be compelled to move to Glendale, and in this way, in a constructive way, increase our revenues instead of becoming overly reliant on funds that are here one day, may be gone tomorrow.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill, your 1-minute response, please.
The intent of redevelopment was good back in the old days. Unfortunately, greed set in. Developers wanted the money, council people wanted the campaign contributions. That created a conflict of interest. The best thing that happened in Sacramento was the elimination of redevelopment money. Now the schools can have the money. At the local government area, we play a game of developers, campaign contributions. Causes corruption, and we've seen it up and down. We now have mega complexes up and down Brandon Central today. Council people have given to developers sweetheart deals in order to bring in more revenue to pay for those salaries and pensions of the city obligations we have before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, your 1-minute response, please.
The objective of redevelopment when it was initiated was to remove blight, both the physical blight that you would see in many urban areas and the economic blight of lack of opportunity. So the ideas that were generated to bring this kind of idea where the tax increment money will be replowed back into the community was originally a good one. So we had certain projects in the city of Glendale, like the Galleria, like the old, what is now the Hilton Hotel, and several other projects like the Americana. The problem has been that developers took advantage of that particular benefit by getting subsidies that were significant and pitting one city against the other about getting those subsidies. So at the end of the day, what we really had was a system that was ripe for corruption or ripe for advantage of very particular developers. Right now, when we lost redevelopment, we lost both the assets and the liabilities. And we need to talk about the liabilities that we no longer have because redevelopment doesn't exist any longer.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian, your 1-minute response, please.
The loss of the redevelopment funds was a terrible blow to the city of Glendale and cities across the entire state of California, and it was largely unforeseen. This came sudden and it came quickly, and it came not because the legislature saw redevelopment as being a bad thing. It came because they needed quick money to balance their own state budget, and the redevelopment funds were the most easy target for them to do. Redevelopment has done great things for the city of Glendale. It helped bring us the Americana, the Galleria. It helped bring us Disney and DreamWorks. The way to overcome that loss is to pull together. One great example is the Business Improvement District, which has just been launched to help cover some of the loss of the policing, the cleaning, and the economic development that goes on in the downtown area. We need to continue that and continue to bring other businesses in, like LegalZoom and Whole Foods, to make our downtown back to where we could have been without the loss of those funds.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Mr. Carolian. Do you support or oppose Measure A, the proposed charter amendment that would convert the position of city treasurer from an elected to an appointed position, which will be voted on in April? And please explain your position. Mr. Carolian, your 2-minute response, please.
Hundreds of thousands of people have sacrificed their lives, so we, many of us immigrants who have come to this country, to have the opportunity to raise our voice, to participate in the process, the political process, in order to stand up for what we believe is right and to vote for the issues that we believe are right or vote against the issues that we don't think are right. Having said that, my position is to let the people decide. We do not have the right, we should not be taking their right away from them to express their opinion, to vote for the city attorney, for the city clerk, or the city treasurer, just like the city council members at this point. Each and every individual has that voice, and they have to practice their voice and their right and stand up and say exactly what they want. So, having said that, then we should not take their right to vote away from them. They, the community, the citizens of this country, of this city specifically in this case, have that right, have that vote, and they should be selecting their city treasurer.
Thank you. Mr. Kadikian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. I want to continue on the same note that Mr. Karoglian talked about. And I want to specify that the Achilles heel of democracy is apathy, people not wanting to participate. And on every opportunity we can get our citizens to come and vote, we should do that. And voting for the treasurer is just another way to get people involved in their city. That's one purpose. The second purpose, I want a treasurer who is accountable to the people and not beholden to city council. An appointed treasurer is basically an employee, and he will do and he will say whatever city council tells him to say if he wants to keep that job. I want an independent treasurer who will come every 4 years back to the people and ask permission to serve them again.
Thank you. Mr. Engel, your 1-minute response, please.
I'll start off by saying I'm going to tell you how I'm going to vote, and then give you the reasons why I'm going to vote that particular way. First off, I'm going to vote in support of Measure A. I think that the primary role of the city treasurer is to manage the city's portfolio and funds. I have a little bit of a concern whenever the only qualification to manage the city's substantial portfolio is to have $25 in your pocket and 100 friends to sign your petition. There's no requirement to have any background in investment banking. There's no requirement to have any years of experience in managing portfolios of that size. And I would ask, would you entrust your money as an individual to someone who just had those minimum qualifications? And I would say you probably wouldn't. So for my mind, I think it would be important for us to say these are minimum qualifications that we would want our chief financial officer to have, then hold them accountable to do that. It's much easier to hold the council accountable for that.
Mr. Kazazian, your 1-minute response, please.
Okay, it is our right to vote for who we want to. And the only reason that they don't want you to, they want to appoint the treasurer to hide the losses they've had. You know, we have lost millions of dollars from the city Glendale budget. We've lost from the unrestricted funds of $142 million. We've lost from the restricted funds over $100 million. We've lost Glendale Water and Power over $100 million in the last 4 years. Is this what we want? So I am going to vote no, not only for A, for B, and for C, all three measures. And this is very important. This treasurer should be accountable for the people, not for the council that wants to hide what's going behind the doors. Thank you very much. Please vote for Aram Kazazian.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Ms. Fuentes, and it's a two-part question. What should the city do to enhance security on school campuses? What is your position on the ban of gun sales on city property? Ms. Fuentes, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you very much. First, the City Council should continue close communications and dialogue with the Unified School District. I think we should bring back some of the programs and some of the activities that we have cut and taken out this past few years, such as having more police security and visibility in the campus, bringing back some of the on-patrol securities and police, bringing back some of the after-school programs, and at the same time, increasing communications, again, not just with the Unified School District, but also with the parents, the students, and the teachers. I think we can come up with some programs to collaborate and keep all the communications open between one another so we know what's happening. As far as the ban on gun control, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. I respect the Second Amendment. My major concern with the last gun control show was having it at the Civic Center directly across from Glendale Community College, close to so many schools and also church. I think we sent the wrong message to the young students and the youth of our community. And I hope the city will still continue to help and work with the gun show people and see if we can relocate them somewhere where it is better, acceptable, and will not create so many negative communications or dissents from parents, teachers, and the young ones. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. We at the city take school safety extremely seriously. We do ongoing drills and have emergency preparation with our school district in place. We drill not just for crime events on our campuses, but for earthquakes, for fires, for any type of event that we think could possibly happen. And we do that on an ongoing basis and a very serious basis with the school district. I also do believe that the communication with the school district is important. When I was mayor, I met monthly with both GCC and with the community college and with the school district. And I hope that all of the council members continue that tradition when they're mayor. It is very important. And I do think that the school resource officers needs to be continued. We do have resource officers in the school now, but I would like to see that increased. Now, we have given permission at City Council to hire another 15 police officers, so we are going to be having more officers in the system, and it's my hope that that program will be fully implemented once again. Again, we do have the officers in the schools, but we can always use more. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Black, your 1-minute response, please.
Yeah, safety in the school is a big concern with me. My son is in the second grade at a public school here in Glendale, Franklin Magnet. I don't know if, I think armed guards would be a little crazy. Metal detectors would be ugly, but if necessary, maybe. At least they could have seat belts in the school field trip buses, I would think. But regarding the gun show, I've got several emails the last day about concerned voters. What's my position? I've said it a few times. I'm for the right to bear arms and the right to have a gun if you need one in your home to protect your home. However, I think having a gun show like I agree with Edith, right across the street from the school, I think it sends the wrong message. And I would vote to have the freedom to have the gun show on any private property. So they'd have the freedom to have the gun show, just not on a government property across from a school.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes, your 1-minute response, please.
Okay. As one of your councilmen, 19 years ago we started a program called Scholastic Crime Stoppers on campus. And our first real event with that was at Wilson Middle School. And a Crime Stopper program is an anonymous tip. And the students, 99% of the students that made reports did not want cash, they did not want rewards, they wanted safety on their campus. And we had a young man that came in, a tip was given, that tip went straight to that there was weapons on the campus, and the principal, our resource officer were there to stop it. And that program is a national program, international program. It's mandatory in the Canadian schools. I would make it, and try and make it mandatory in our local Glendale schools. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Mr. Mohill. Glendale is reputed to have among the worst and most unsafe drivers when compared to other cities of similar size. If elected or re-elected as a council member representative, what would you do to encourage better driving behavior among our residents? Mr. Mohill, your 2-minute response, please.
I believe we need more training of kids and adults on how to drive. I remember when I was in high school, we had driver's training. Do they offer that today, driver's training to the school kids, parents? That's a good start. I remember we had a program in Glendale called, I'm sorry. It was a thing, it was a bumper sticker, it was a slogan. Courtesy is contagious. And that bumper sticker sent a message throughout the community for those few months. The number one thing we needed was to have more traffic calming. The way we can have traffic calming is to have more policemen on the ground. But when you have just as many people retired as you have on the current payroll, we have no money to enforce law enforcement of any nature. That's what the problem is, the finances of the city. If we can have our finances of the city under control, we can go ahead and buy police officers, resource officers. The issue is mainly driver safety. We need training at home. We need school to educate the kids and the parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, your 1-minute response, please.
In the 1980s, when we moved to Glendale, we used to know that we better drive carefully or we would be ticketed. There was a sense that this city really manages traffic very well. But in order to manage traffic safety, you need to have 3 elements, the elements of education, enforcement, and engineering. And it's the combination of those 3 that make it happen. But in the past 4 years, we have absolutely no change in traffic safety. We have had pretty much the same number of injuries to pedestrians, and you'll see it in the reports of the police department. We need to have a greater enforcement effort by increasing the number of traffic cops on the beat, managing and creating the type of controls that make aware to the rest of the public that we are really serious about safety. The issues of education are important, but I believe that it all starts first and most effectively by having sufficient number of policemen out on the roads in patrol cars to be able to start enforcing. Thank you.
Mr. Najarian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. Traffic safety is a big problem in the city of Glendale. I served 8 years on the Transportation and Parking Commission. and I saw it firsthand. And when I came into my beginning of my second term, I was able to bring in the University of Berkeley as well as the State of California Office of Traffic Safety to give a seminar and hold forums with our traffic engineers and the members of the community to help work on ways to stop the traffic and pedestrian accidents. It's a difficult task. We have to keep at it all the time. It involves enforcement. We need more police out there. In fact, when we heard that there were speeds of 100 miles an hour on Glen Oaks Boulevard, we had to have our helicopter patrol, and we caught several drivers going in excess of 80 and 90 miles an hour. We have to encourage responsibility amongst our youth, and we have to educate people the dangers of texting and talking on the telephone while they drive. It's a never-ending cycle. We have to keep at it all the time.
Thank you. Mr. Sinanian, your 1-minute response, please.
I believe episodic enforcement of traffic is not going to bear fruit, and isolated seminars are not going to bear fruit either. I do agree with Mr. Milano that it has to be a combination of more enforcement, better traffic engineering, and education programs. If this is such a huge problem, if we are indeed one of the worst cities in the country, we need to remedy it without any more time passing, because we have had many pedestrian deaths as a result of these traffic accidents, and deaths in general, and injuries. So increase education in schools and think of creative ways to increase education with parents, better traffic engineering, but most importantly, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to enforcement. So we have to make sure that the police are properly equipped and they're properly manned to be able to enforce it to the degree where we have a substantial cut in traffic problems.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Mr. Kadikian. Do you support allowing additional commercial and residential development in downtown Glendale? Why or why not? Mr. Kadikian, your 2-minute response, please.
I think at this point, downtown Glendale has been overdeveloped. I think in the excitement of having revenue either from sale tax or property tax for the sale of residential units, we overdeveloped that area. And at this point, I think we are at the maximum limit that we can handle without understanding and learning the infrastructure needs that we need. At this point, I don't think downtown Glendale can handle the additional traffic. The GWP, whether the infrastructure of the water system or the electric system, does not or cannot handle additional demand. If you know, GWP needs an infrastructure upgrade of $220 million. Our electric utility needs infrastructure upgrades of $300 million. How can these two utilities support additional structures coming into downtown Glendale? That is my concern. Now, I know there is zoning laws, and some developer may have bought the land, and he is within his right to build that particular property according to the zone. We should not provide variances or exceptions. We should enforce the law as they are and require the developer to understand that when he is going to come to Glendale, he is going to comply with the law exactly without variances. We want to understand the impact that this particular development is going to create on the community, and we want to be prepared as these units come online. We want to be proactively ready to deal with the difficulties that they're going to generate at this point.
Thank you. Mr. Engel, your 1-minute response, please.
I've alluded a couple times to the fact that I'm out walking precincts as a part of this process. And one of the questions that I get asked all the time is, what are you going to do about the traffic in downtown? And that has a direct relationship on this particular question. And sometimes I turn that around when I'm talking to people, because I say, I think traffic in some respects can be a good thing because it's an indicator of economic vitality. It tells you immediately that there's something going on. What we have to do is we have to be able to manage that impact on our quality of life. And I think that's why you are electing 5 city council members that will take that into consideration with any decision. As we move forward, I'd like to see us do more emphasis on commercial. I think that the opportunity to generate the revenue that the other candidates have talked about kind of exists more there than I do with residential. Residential tends to demand more financial resources to support them than commercial does, and I think that's what I would like to see as we move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Gazazian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you very much. This is a very touching subject for me. I've been arguing about this subject for many, many years. Number one, here's a project, 165 residential condominium units, okay, and they received 125 space parking exception. We don't call it variance. They changed the name now to exception or reduction. Okay, we have a hotel that requires hundreds and hundreds of parking. Only 39 parking spaces can be provided right on Central Avenue. And the other day I said, no, it has 56 parking spaces because we're going to consider the aisles backup space. We can park cars in it and block all the handicap spaces. We'll give you an extra space, but it's 39 spaces. I went and looked at the plans. We have a problem. We don't have the water to sustain this project. We don't have the electricity. We don't have any trash place to dump all the garbage anymore. It's enough. It's enough. And I think it's about time we put the brakes on. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kroglian, your 1-minute response, please.
In order to have, even to think about adding more commercial development in downtown Glendale, we have to have several things in line first. One is making sure that we do have the infrastructure ready and that it sustains any new development. The second is the project is well studied, not only in itself, but as to how it compares with the neighborhood. And I agree with Mr. Kazazian that as a design review board member, we do put each and every homeowner into a very difficult task, even if they want to expand their window by a couple inches. And yet, when the developers come to town, we give them variances as if there's no tomorrow. So that has to be put back in order, and we do need development, that is correct. We do need revenues, however, it has to be studied and it has to be done in a way that it is acceptable, not only for downtown, but for the entire city population.
The next question will be directed first to Ms. Friedman. The 710 freeway extension will have an impact on Glendale traffic and residents. What is your current position on the 710 freeway extension? Ms. Friedman, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. The 710 freeway extension is a huge threat to the quality of life to people in Glendale, particularly to the north part of the city. It's also a financial boondoggle, something that economically makes no sense. It costs billions of dollars. They can't even tell us how many billions of dollars at this point. It could be as much as $13 billion. And it's not something that will generate any kind of that kind of revenue to repay itself. It's a 20th century solution for a 21st century problem. What we should be doing is sending the freight from Long Beach, which is really what this is all about, on rail to the inland depots. That's the clean way to do it. That's the environmental way to do it. Now, I'm already on record as opposing the tunnel, as is most of the city council. I won't say all, but most of us. And we have passed resolutions against the tunnel. We voiced our concerns to the MTA, to Caltrans, to the state, to anyone that will listen. We're involved with several of our surrounding cities to lobby against the tunnel, and hopefully will be listened to by the rest of Southern California, because it really is in the worst interest of the people of Glendale. It's not in the best interest of the state of California because of the money that it costs, and it's certainly not in anybody's environmental interest to try to get more trucks on the road as opposed to reducing truck traffic, which is what rail systems will do, probably for less money. So I am definitely opposed to the 710 extension, and I've said it loud and clear throughout my entire time in office. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Black, your 1-minute response, please.
You know, near my son's school off of Western and the 5, they're doing just a patch of road where they're redoing the retaining wall, the sound wall, I don't know, they ripped up some stuff. And just that one little area has caused so much commotion, all the trucks and I get these emails from AQMD with the air quality every day, and it's orange or yellow, and it's scary, and you can feel it in your lungs. I can't even imagine the impact that the 710 fiasco would cause on the community. I would be totally against it.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes, your 1-minute response, please.
Okay, with that, I'm against the 710 tunnel. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Fuentes, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. I'm just going to say I oppose the 710 freeway expansion. Everything associated with it, I title it big. It's a big threat. It's a big problem. It's a big expense, especially now that the economy is not doing very well with the state, with the county, and all the city and local governments. We need to preserve our environment and quality of air. As a matter of fact, like I said, this is going to be a big headache to all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Mr. Milano. The city has banned single-use plastic bags in Glendale stores. Do you believe that the city should ban styrofoam containers? Please explain what kind of changes you would support. Mr. Milano, your 2-minute response, please.
Last year, my daughter went to the Los Angeles County as they were basically discussing the issues of plastic bags, the issues of environmental sensitivity. And I think I would like to take a page from her advocacy to the fact that we have to think beyond our own immediate conveniences to the wider and more extensive impact of how it is that we manage our waste and how it is that we are looking out for the overall environment well beyond the city's borders. The issue that we have oftentimes is that the options that we have at our disposal oftentimes are not considered. There are some technologies available which allow for certain types of plastic that are that will expire in terms of their life in the landfill in a very shorter period of time than the current bags that we have. I believe that styrofoam cups are a significant environmental danger, especially to marine life. I believe that when we recognize that we have an environmental situation that impacts so many life forms, that we should take an effect of basically taking the lead and basically joining other cities who are taking the approach towards a more environmentally safe policies. So it is oftentimes a process by which we consider how are the steps that we're going to take in order to change a culture. A culture of buying and disposing should be a culture that does not take care of your overall environmental necessities. So I would encourage the city to continue on this process and find alternatives that are both practical and effective to achieve that environmental need.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. This is an interesting question. It came up in my interview with the Sierra Club. That was before they decided to endorse me, and our discussion was on how we can reduce the waste stream of the city and of our families and of our residents. The single-use plastic bag, in essence, was an easy option to ban because we have the alternatives of the recycled bags or the paper bags that we would like to use. The problem with the styrofoam cups or containers, I'm not sure there's a viable alternative out there. We'd like to see some sort of biodegradable product, whether it's paper or other sort of bio product, but I don't think we're ready to ban them outright until we have a viable alternative for our retailers and food servers to offer. But I'm in support of moving towards a zero-waste economy.
Thank you. Mr. Sinanian, your 1-minute response, please.
I'm also in agreement that we should continue the process of eliminating all environmentally unfriendly aspects of our lives, whether it's plastic bags or styrofoam cups. Whether that is something that we can do right now is questionable to me in the sense that if to the extent that is going to impose an additional expense on businesses that are located in Glendale or an additional expense on the residents of the city of Glendale, I think we need to proceed carefully in a very thought out manner and to make sure that we don't rush to a decision with obviously keeping in the long term the goal of achieving a situation where we are using hopefully paper as opposed to styrofoam. But even then, even paper is obviously made at the expense of trees, so we should think it through before we make a decision.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill, your 1-minute response, please.
Paper or plastic? Environment. plastic bags have been an issue for many years. So are the styrofoam cups. How are we going to replace them is the big issue. There are interest groups on both sides for keeping the plastic bags and not styrofoam also. But I believe we need to think of the future of the environment and how it will affect the people who will be behind us, who will inherit our trash. We have a landfill that's filling up, and nobody in the city cares. We have to be very concerned about trash, about paper or plastic in this usage. Thank you.
Thank you. The final question will be directed first to Mr. Engel. Glendale has many employees. What do you feel are the key issues facing the council relative to employees and budget cuts, salaries, diversity, hiring, or firing? Mr. Engel, your 2-minute response, please.
That's a multiple choice question. First off, I think we've got a lot of different things that are going on with our employees and our payroll. We'll start off by making the general observation that I think everybody knows, we've heard it throughout the campaign debates, is the significant part of the city's budget is personnel costs. We are not an organization that makes widgets, so we don't have a lot of material costs because we deliver services. The majority of the cost for the city organization is in payroll expense. On the other side of the equation and dealing with that on the first part of the question is that we have had either a flat source of revenue, depending on which of the people you talk to and which financial reports you looked at. Our revenues have either been flat, they've been increasing, or going down. But regardless of what that is you have to look at making sure that those payroll expenses stay within the confines of what your limitations are. And I look at it like any of us would do at home. If you don't have the money at home, you don't spend it if you don't have it. If you have to make a major expense, you bank it until you have it saved away, and then you do that. The same thing would apply with how we would manage the city, whether it's payroll or maintenance expenses as well. I think we have the opportunity moving forward, especially as we have kind of leveled our expenses under the current city council, is to kind of say, as we start bringing employees back, if the revenues allow, that we don't bring them back at a level that's greater than the resources we have, and that we set the standard and the bar higher, saying there is a public trust with employees, and our residents expect that we're going to have top quality employees, and that our residents are going to enjoy the top quality services that you will get. We provide wonderful benefits. Our employees have acknowledged that. I think we continue down the road of making sure that those benefits are sustainable by the contributions of our employees. And I think that's the key to success over the next couple of years.
Thank you. Mr. Gazazian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you very much. I think the problem is we don't do any job classification or job study on the people that's working. That's where the problem is. We have some good employees in the city that I know of, and we have some very bad ones, and those are getting the same pay as the good ones. We need to study who's good and who's bad, not just give a over-the-board increase of salaries. We give salaries by just classifying them higher. We don't increase the salaries, but we change their classification under a memorandum of understanding. So all of a sudden they increase $20,000. Their number of employees increased $20,000, $30,000 a year in salaries. We didn't increase them. And those are not worth it. They did not do their work. They were not deserving of that. But so no one is really paying attention who should be good or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kroglian, your 1-minute response, please.
The question has had several parts, so I'll just address a few of them. One of them is obviously payroll. Payroll is one of the major situations that needs to be taken under control. The second one is the need to reduce the number of managers compared to numbers of employees. Obviously, I'm talking about the ratio. We laid off over 150 individuals, and then for whatever reason, we rehired 50 consultants. That's still not clear as to what happened and why, if we don't have the budget. So how did we rehire consultants? And one part of that question should be addressed, and that is does the city government, as far as the employee or the workforce is involved, does it represent the entire community demographics? Unfortunately, it does not, and there is a lot to be done for that.
Mr. Kadikian, your 1-minute response, please.
Any business owner will tell you the success of his business is dependent on how effective and efficiently he can control his payroll. As a bankruptcy attorney, I know that very well. What we need to strive as a city is control our payroll. If you look at the history of Glendale, at one point we had hired 2,000 employees. Now we have 1,600 employees, and you're still getting the same service. So at one point we had hired 400 employees that we did not need. And how did these employees get paid? They get paid from funds that the general resident end up having to pay in one way or another. An ineffective or inefficient government always ends up burdening the resident. And when the residents are burdened with taxes, they are unable to thrive. The job of City Council is to make the resident of Glendale be the best that they can be.
Thank you. The candidates will now have 2 minutes each to respond to any question that they did not have the opportunity to respond to during the prior questioning. Mr. Black, your 2-minute response, please.
Okay, I'd like to touch on two subjects that were touched on. The styrofoam, I've called the city and asked, why can't we put that in our recycle bin? They used to not be able to have plastic bags in the recycle bin, and now they do. You know, I think people just throw it away. It's like you get an appliance and there's packed with styrofoam. I mean, I thought McDonald's phased that out back in the 80s. I don't know why everyone else didn't, but that's a sore point with me. The traffic congestion, I lived in Orlando, outside Orlando in a suburb, like 25 years ago, and they had already figured out a way to, on off-peak hours, to have all the lights green if there was no side streets, if there was no cars on any of the side streets. Why haven't we, figured out a way to do that? It's like you don't even hardly have left turn arrows at many of the intersections, so I just think we're way behind. Like, it'll be off-peak hour and you'll be sitting there at a light, there's no traffic in miles. I think we need to get on board with that. Get all the lights, coordinated, calibrated. All the planets need to be aligned on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes, your 2-minute response, please.
Well, one came up on the services, and I think on accountability, we have services in the city of Glendale, and sometimes what occurs is that we're not listening. We're not listening, and that was apparent in a number of forums that we've been at, is that the council is always saying, yes, we're hearing, but when you go and you're talking to them or asking questions, they aren't listening. And there's some really great ideas, and there's some really great people that we have in the community that bring good ideas. But sometimes there's a control factor, and I don't know if it's personal interest or if it's the developers, but when we're talking about the development in South Glendale, and you look at land that's given away, how is that accountable to us, the taxpayers? That land's worth millions of dollars, and yet we are begging to have a developer come in. South Glendale, the area that was being built, is a very prime area in South Glendale, and yet we are giving away property. On Central, we're giving away property. We also sold a piece of property up in North Glendale in La Crescenta, where we ended up in a bad market. Why would you give away property? Why would you even sell something when in the city you have no tax on it, you don't have to worry about it, the small maintenance on it, and we took less money than a property I sold just close by to that for $300,000 more. So why in a bad market do we allow our council people or our staff to persuade us to do things when it's not necessary? That, I think, is accountable, and that's actually, where's the common sense in it? So that's where I'm at on some of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fuentes, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you very much. I'm going to sound like a previous employee who saw it, who heard it, who witnessed it, and who experienced it within the last 20 years. How would you feel if this week your boss just announced, we're going to lay off 5 or 10 employees, and then he turns around the following week and say, we are promoting some of the employees and we are reallocating some positions, giving them more salary, more pension, Of course, it's going to affect everything within the budget. Look at morale, hiring and firing. Last night, I mentioned at the forum, I do not have any problems firing, terminating, or demoting an employee if it is done right, just, with proper documentations, and fairly. But when it's not done right, I have a problem with that. And I will fight for any employee or any citizen of Glendale that will go through the same unjust and unfair treatment. Payroll, pension, and budget. Keep in mind the inverted triangle that I just showed you at the beginning of my speech. It's heavily laden with managers, over managers, over managers. That's where the money are all coming from and being siphoned into the pension fund. Overtime, we need to look at our overtime, how we allow too much overtime to be wasted also, and eating up our pension and budget. So I'm going to look at it again when I get there, fiscal responsibility and budgeting properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman, your 2-minute response, please.
Thanks. I'd like to talk about downtown development. Let me give a historical perspective as to why we're having development in our downtown. Many years ago, before I was on city council, the previous councils made what I think was a very wise decision. They looked around the city and saw that many of the areas that abutted our single-family neighborhoods were zoned for much higher intensity than we have now. So what was happening was that developers were looking and purchasing 15 and 20 unit older buildings because they could knock those down and build 50 and 60 unit buildings, sometimes even bigger. So what the council did was they downzoned those areas, and there were 18 of them all over the city, to protect our single-family neighborhoods. But when you do this, the state requires you to absorb that growth elsewhere in your city. Otherwise, they will not accept your housing element. So they had to find an area to upzone. And what they did was they looked at the downtown, which has the infrastructure, it has the public transportation, it has the walking access to job centers, to shops and restaurants, and they decided to shift that growth and that capacity into that area. It was a smart decision, and it's going to protect our residential neighborhoods. It's also going to create an 18-hour downtown for the first time, to where shops and restaurants don't feel that they have to close at 6 o'clock because they don't have any customers, because now they're going to have people living in their downtown the way that healthy downtowns like Old Town Pasadena do. And Old Town, by the way, in Pasadena has added thousands of units over the years, which is why young people go there, because they have rental units that young people can live in, whereas here we have a shortage of apartments and our young people have left the city. And also don't forget that according to the census, we have lost over 10,000 residents in Glendale. So it's not as though hordes of new people are going to be moving in. What we're going to do, though, is provide places for the younger people to live so they don't have to commute from Pasadena, North Hollywood, and Silver Lake into the city. That will create a more dynamic downtown. Thank you.
Mr. Najarian, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. I'd like to hit on 4 of the questions. Number 1 is the one regarding pensions. And let's all understand pensions. We cannot retroactively go back and change the pension rates of anyone who's been awarded a pension. That's called an entitlement. However, what we can do is go back and create a new tier. That's called a second tier, which we have started in Glendale, and there is no other city in the state of California with a tougher second tier pension than Glendale has. We make our employees contribute more than anyone else. We have a 3-year average, so there's no spiking. We make them contribute to their health plan, and we do not offer them retirement health care plans. So we are being very tough on the pensions. With regard to the 710 tunnel, one of my favorite subjects, I applaud all my colleagues who said they are against the tunnel. It is the worst thing that can happen to our region. We need to put that freight on the rails and take it from the ports to the distribution centers in a clean, safe manner. Let's talk about South Glendale. I have lived for 2 years most recently below the 134 freeway in an apartment building, and I understand the issues very well that face those residents. However, the council has devoted much of its resources towards South Glendale. There's a great Adams Square Park, which we dedicated not too long ago. We're putting in a much-needed water main up Adams Hill, and the Pacific Pool. Now let's talk about Measure A. Let's not talk about democracy in action, folks. because on the ballot for treasurer is just one name. And the last I checked, it was, that's a Politburo election where there's one person on the election. This is the Achilles heel with just one person. Don't say we're having choices. I'm disappointed that there's no other candidate for treasurer, but in general, I do support the voice of the electorate to pick the treasurer.
Mr. Sinanian, your 2-minute response, please.
I'll start with Measure A since that was the last issue up. I oppose Measure A because it takes away our democratic right to vote. As it is, we have very little input in decision-making process in the city as voters, as residents of this city. So therefore, taking, Measure A basically takes away another avenue for us to choose those that govern this city and choose those that make important decisions for the city. And the fact that there's only one candidate is just a luck of the draw, I guess. It's not the difference between Glendale and the Politburo, and I was born in the Soviet Union, I know something about Politburo, is that the Politburo forced for there to be only one candidate. No one's forcing Glendale to have only one candidate. In terms of downtown development, I do agree with some of the candidates that we can't be categorical about this issue. You can't just say there can't be development. I mean, progress, you cannot stop progress. The city has to move forward. The city has to develop. It's just a matter of making sure that the development, to the extent that it takes place, is responsible and that it fits a vision and that it is in sync with our vision of what Glendale should be like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And finally, in terms of whether the city needs districts, I'm not sure whether that is necessarily the answer. I think in order to provide more transparency and more accountability and prevent stagnation on city council, term limits may be a better solution. So those are my answers.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill, your 2-minute response, please.
Back in September, October of last year, I started visiting hundreds of merchants throughout the city of Glendale, north, east, west, south, you name it, hundreds. And they told me, Mr. Mohill, our number one concern is our water rates that keep going up, our electric rates that keep going up, our trash fees that keep going up, dining fees, this tax. They're living on a small margin. And they said to me, Mr. Mohill, where's all this money going to? Because you know what? I look outside and I see my streets need to be repaired. I know my kids who live in the city, parks are dirty. Where's all this money going to? And I said to them, it's simple. Look at this piece of paper. There are over 700 city employees with salaries between $100,000 to over $200,000 a year. And after 30 years of service, they will, at age 50 or 55, receive a pension of either 90% or 75% of that pension for life. And the people who pay the bills will be living on Social Security. The council people feel that what they've done is great pension reform. I call it Band-Aid. It's two-tier. No. Why don't you put the city employees back to where it used to be, like 75% of a pension, or Social Security and 401k plan? There are other plans other than what we have right now. The current council wants to maintain the status quo because they've received thousands of dollars in campaign contributions from the city unions, and in return, they're giving them millions of dollars in salaries and pension that we cannot afford, and we need to change the system. And we have an opportunity on April the 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, your 2-minute response, please.
I think that those here listening and those at home, we really need to make a determination of two different narratives being given to you. Either the pension system was corrected or it was not. Either we have the significant obligation in the future with regard to the impact on our finances, or we don't. There has been no greater and more significant impact on the finances of the city of Glendale than the two changes to the pension system that occurred in 2001, which was made retroactive 30 years back, and then the pension system changed in 2005. Between the two of those, they have actually transferred over $700 million out of the city's funds, Without those funds, we cannot build parks. Without those funds, we cannot build the roads. Without those funds, we have to transfer money from the Glendale Water and Power. Without those funds, we have to raise your utility rates. Without those funds, we cannot hire the right number of policemen. The pension system, more than anything else in this city for the past 12 years, has impacted us in ways that are unimaginable. I have followed the city's finances in hundreds of visits that I made to the city. And these documents on the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, are clearly documented. We did not make the changes necessary to the current employees, and we need to address it on the current MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding to current employees, for a retirement of 55 at the very minimum. No one that I know in private industry can retire at the age of 50 and receive such a significant pension for the rest of their lives. Eventually, we're going to have two sets of employees, those who work in the city and those who are retired. Twice the number of employees at a significant cost. This, more than anything else, is what must be corrected through negotiations with the current employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kazazian, your 2-minute response, please.
Yes, I'm going to start with the downtown development. Downtown development is good, but not when you give bonus units. Over and above what they have agreed to, they give a bonus unit so they can build it more units. Now, let's pick one building, the Mark Nathanson building. Mark Nathanson building, property is worth $7 million of our tax monies. Now, we give that land for free. We give it for $1, we give it to the developer. Take it and go. Developer said, I don't want to put any parking. I want to get the project put with 0 parking. 46-unit apartment, 600-seat restaurant, movie theaters, restaurant space, commercial space. Okay, I don't want to put any parking. So they approved, that project got approved with 0 parking originally. Then when we lost one council person, then they came back for the second stage, they couldn't get that vote, the third vote. So they convinced another council person to vote for that. So now he says, okay, why don't you give me 46 parking spaces? So he gave 46 parking spaces, but we're going to give you a gift of $2.6 million out of your money. Is that fair? This is going on everywhere. Now, we lost $245 million of money was transferred from Glendale Water and Power into the general fund of the city. From there, $315 million of the general fund money, this is in the books, people, was transferred into redevelopment. And all those properties that we bought with those monies were given away for free. Is that fair? No. No, there's no recession for the city, by the way. Our city budget has gone up. We have collected 100 and but I can't read my writing, $145 million, so $120 million more money in the last 4 years than we ever had, because the property tax revenue has gone up by 1,100% since 2001. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Karolian, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. Paper or plastic, styrofoam or some new technology. Frankly, if we really are serious about the environment, then we should also take into consideration over 60% of Glendale's population lives in apartment buildings, including myself. I have never seen a program from the city that encourages recycling. So instead of attacking those little pieces of plastic foams, plastic cups, or styrofoam, we should start a citywide program to encourage tenants to recycle. That is where the problem needs to be addressed. Another issue that I would like to talk about is traffic. Traffic when it relates to accidents, to death, and unfortunately, Glendale has become one of the most dangerous when it comes to traffic accident cities in the nation. I remember those days when I was on the force, we were one of the safest cities when it came to safety. The issue there to be addressed is definitely education. Education, however, should come from homes. It doesn't necessarily have to be enforcement. A lot of times when I'm driving on the streets, it just is mind-boggling to see how these kids drive like crazies, as if there's no tomorrow, as if there's no speed limit, as if there's no human being who may all of a sudden jump in front of them and they will be causing accidents and death. That has to come from home, and of course, enforcement has to be much more drastic than it is today. And there is a way of getting officers from their desks down to patrol in order to have more presence on the streets. If that will take care of the problem, then we have to do that. We have to get more officers on motorcycles and protect the safety of the people, and specifically those who cross the streets.
Thank you. Mr. Kadikian, your 2-minute response, please.
I want to address a couple of issues. The first one is with regards to Measure A and poor planning. I am surprised that the City Council, which has incumbents on it of 8 years' experience and some who are on it for 16 years, would put this measure at the same time that a city treasurer is going to be elected. Who is going to run for office that might not be even there? That's why we only have one person, and that one person happens to already has a city council job. So even if you look at Mr. Manoukian, he's not even campaigning to be elected for treasurer. He's just campaigning no on A. So that is the lack of foresight that you would expect a city council that has 16 years of experience, some of them, would see and say, no, we should wait 2 years, let this election happen, and then we can have an election which is fair, that people want to participate in, and not some polybura, as Mr. Najarian said. The second issue is with regards to utility rate increases. Who pays for the utility rate increases and why? We, the public, pay for it. Small business pays for it that operates on a small margin of 3 to 5%, which will drive them out of business or make it difficult for them to come into this. Who else? Our biggest utility user is Glendale Unified School District. They pay for it. And when we increase it, where is that money going to come from? From the education of our children. So we burden our children also with our own utility rate increases. And the question is why? Why are we doing this? Are we running this city as effectively and efficiently we can so that we have earned the right to come and ask for more utility rate increases? If you look at the pattern of having 2,000 employees down to 1,600, that doesn't say so.
Thank you. Mr. Engel, your 2-minute response, please.
Thanks. I've got a bunch of different things to say, and I wrote down a bunch of different topics. First off, I'd like to start off with the idea of redevelopment. We have all heard all of the impacts of the loss of redevelopment. We've seen that over the last couple of years. I think that's great. That happened in the past. I bemoan the loss of the city of Glendale. It was a huge economic development tool. But I think we need to look at what we're going to do in the future. As the economy is turning around, and it is gradually turning around, there's general recognition that that is, we need to be positioning ourselves to say, what kind of tools can we develop locally or with our neighbors, Glendale, Burbank, maybe even Los Angeles, to say how can we regionally develop our economy absent that redevelopment tool. Let's put on our thinking caps and do that as council members and charge our staff to be creative to do that. That's one of the things that we can do moving forward. One of the other things I think that kind of blends with that, there was a question on how we can build our economy, and a number of the candidates talked about small business. Well, there's some things that we can do to really help our small businesses, and in particular, making sure that the regulations that we have as a city, that for the most part we're required to do, are reasonable, they're understandable, that they are consistently enforced from business to business, and that the fees attached to them are appropriate and reasonable. I think if we're able to do that, we're going to be able to do our regulatory role, but also be able to develop business in town. I want to take a little bit of exception to what some people have said, is that we have cut back our budget and we're maintaining services. It comes back to what I originally said. That's why I'm running. I am not convinced that the services that we are providing now are the same quality that we used to enjoy. I want to make sure that we're continuing to do that. And if elected, I want to make sure we're back at providing quality fire and police services to a level that supports this community, providing adequate public works, providing those quality of life things that our library, park, recreation, and community services do, because those are the kind of quality of life things that our residents expect. Thank you.
We will now conclude our forum with a 1-minute closing statement from each candidate. Mr. Black, your 1-minute closing statement, please.
Well, first, thank you kindly for inviting me to the forum. And I invite anyone to visit my website, voteforjefferson.com, and it's with the number 4. The city council position is an important, honored position, but it's not rocket science. One doesn't need to be a lawyer or a CEO to qualify. Just a diplomatic problem solver, which is what I am. I plan to serve Glendale residents fairly and honestly in the most effective manner possible, tackling every problem head-on. I'll always keep in mind the best interests of the city as a whole. I'm compassionate but unafraid to fight for what I believe is right. So let's make this city an amazing place to live, work, and play. Let's bring pride and integrity back to the city, back where it belongs, to Glendale. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes, your 1-minute closing
All
statement,
right.
please.
Again, thank you for the League of Women Voters. I have common sense, and I guess you get it when you're selling real estate because you're working for the benefit of the individual principals, buyers and sellers. And when I see that you're taking a area and you downzone it when it was planned, future planned a long time ago, that had common sense, kind of like the guys that built the waterways that we have. Now what we have is we have this downtown center. We have no land to build schools that are going to be servicing. We're already down 1/3 of the enrollment in our schools right now, and we took away housing cost. We can't bring in young people because there's no cost. I mean, there's no homes cheap enough to let them live in. Not even nice planned apartments, things like that, that they could rent, they could fill in the schools. I'm running because I want to represent us, the taxpayers, and have some common sense, accountability, the transparency, and of course, most importantly, I want to be here working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fuentes, your 1-minute closing statement, please.
Thank you again for having us here, and thank you everyone for staying with us. I am the candidate that knows how the city works, where the problems are, and I am up to the challenge to make those solutions. Glendale is at a crossroads, and the challenges ahead are widespread and problematic. We must strike a balance to preserve our quality of life while living within our means. I'll say it again, we cannot spend money we don't have or more than the revenues we bring in. No more credit cards, no more debts, no more borrowing. Allow me to bring a balanced approach to the council that focuses on preserving the quality of life. Remember, Fuentes, number 3 on your ballot, what matters to you is important to me, and what's important to you matters to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman, your 1-minute closing statement, please.
Thank you. As your council member, I've proven that fiscal responsibility is my top priority. We have tackled pension reform head-on in the city. We have reduced salaries, we have reduced pension payouts, we have raised the retirement age, and we have negotiated for our employees to pay more towards their pensions, in fact, more than any agency that I know of. Despite this recession, when cities around California are going bankrupt, when downtowns are closed and boarded up, we have a thriving business environment with companies moving into the city on a daily basis practically, and we are also improving our infrastructure, improving our libraries, our parks. We are fiscally responsible to the point where we are able to invest back in the community. And despite what you've heard tonight, our utility rates are average for this area. We have handled our finances very well. I have appreciated the support of the community, and on April 2nd, I hope that you vote for me and support me again. I agree there's a lot of work to be done, but we have been doing a lot of it. If everything was perfect, I wouldn't need to run again, and I do ask for your support to continue on the positive path.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Najarian, your 1-minute closing statement, please.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you know that we live in a safe, clean, thriving city with great schools and great neighborhoods, a thriving arts and culture scene with great ethnic diversity. If you like where we are currently in Glendale, and if you like the direction in which we're going, you need to return me to City Council. I will fight for Glendale. I will fight for you. I will represent us in the region. And I ask for one of your 3 votes. One of your 3 votes on April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sinanian, your 1-minute closing statement, please.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here and staying this long. We basically all want the same thing. We want a good quality of life. We want good services from the city at a reasonable expense, at reasonable fees. At this point, Glendale needs a plan, not a plan on how to replenish its funds for the next year or 2 years, but a plan that's going to make the city great for the next 15 to 20 years. As chairperson of the CDBG Commission, I have been a consensus builder, ensuring that the ever-decreasing funds are properly allocated to programs and groups that have the highest demonstrable need and efficient use of those resources. As council member, I will work hard to advance and improve the business climate in the city, advocate for easier accessibility and more government transparency, and relentlessly promote an exceptional environment in which to raise our children and watch our families grow and prosper. I am Zara Sinanyan, and my name appears 6th on the ballot, and I hope to earn your vote and trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill, your 1-minute closing statement, please.
My fellow Glendalians, if you want to have water rates increased, please vote for the incumbents. If you want to have your electrical rates increased, please vote for the incumbents. If you want the GWP to be rated by the city unions and their surrogates, Friedman and Najarian, please vote for the incumbents. If you want continued congestion and gridlock in downtown, please vote for the incumbents. If you want our unions and major developers to continue running our city, please vote for the incumbents. Of course, I would like your vote, but for the good of Glendale, I urge you to vote for any of the non-incumbents. The incumbents are not here for you. They are here first for themselves and the unions and major land developers that support them. We cannot expect the ones that created the problems to fix the problems. We need to send a clear message tonight. Business as usual is not acceptable. Thank you. My name is Mike Mohill, number 7 on the ballot.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, your 1-minute closing statement, please.
I believe that those of you here today will leave this room with a question as to whether the city is in a good condition or in a bad condition, whether our debt is controllable or uncontrollable, whether our parks are being addressed properly or not, whether our roads are in good condition or not. You cannot leave here with that dichotomy that both things could be true at the same time. They can't be. I have followed this city judiciously with hundreds and hundreds of meetings, reading over all of the documents that the city has put forth. This is a city in a significant financial bind. And without that correction, we won't be able to address the issues of quality of life that are dear to all. It is my promise that every decision that I make is going to be based on one item only. How does it affect your quality of life and your ability to afford living in the city? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Gazazian, your closing statement, please.
Thank you very much. One thing I have to say, let's save our schools, let's save our children. Let's take Glendale back. Okay, here's what the problem is. We have borrowed $180 million in bonds in the last 4 years, and those bonds have to be paid back over $300 million. So the Glendale Water and Power is burdened paying the interest of that every single year, I believe almost $9 million. I don't have the exact figure on that. So you, the people, are going to have to pay for that. And what happened to that money? They lost it. The reason they lost it, they didn't do any improvements. Improvements was not done. Yes, maybe about $50 million improvements were done. I brought evidence to them 3 years ago that they were going to do the investments they were going to do. They're going to lose money on it. And they laughed at me. They said, no, we are more careful. City manager laughed at my face. Council laughed, said, we are more careful. We know what we're doing with the money. We're not going to lose it. Now we've lost over $100 million. Thank you very much. Please vote for Aram Kazazian.
Mr. Karolian, your 1-minute closing statement, please.
Thank you. We live in a difficult time when our city is faced with a number of problems that need fair, sound fiscal judgment, balanced yet drastic solutions. We all have our opinions about how to fix the issues of traffic, budget, housing, safety, youth and senior programs, issues concerning the disabled and small businesses. Our approaches may differ, but my decisions will be with Glendale's best interests in mind. I have genuine concern, experience, education, knowledge, and the willingness to serve this community as your councilman. As such, I will uphold the values upon which our individual and collective success depends: accountability, teamwork, and transparency. That is why I am endorsed by the Los Angeles County Sheriff Lee Baca. As Glendalians, we need to put our differences aside and start addressing our local issues. It is no longer about us versus them. It is about the best for Glendale. Vote for number 10.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kadikian, your 1-minute closing statement, please.
Thank you. Thank you to the general public for viewing and watching us. I want to let you know that not everything is wrong with Glendale. We have our issues like any other city, and they are surmountable. We can work through them. The way to do it is working through a structured, logical, deductive reasoning so that we can come to solution. As an engineering background, I can bring back that to City Council. As an attorney, I also can bring my knowledge of the law, my ability to mediate, work with others, come to a resolution on the difficulties that we have. Today, on April 2, you will have an opportunity to vote. I hope my name, Roland Kadikian, will be one of your 3 votes so that we can get Glendale moving forward towards a good future.
Thank you. Mr. Engel, your 1-minute closing statement, please.
Thanks, and thanks for everybody coming out tonight. I started off tonight by listing what I thought was my platform and wanted to share that with all of you so that you would know that as I answered my questions, and you can see that I'm consistent in everything that I say. But one of the things that's really hard for any of us to do is to be able to answer the question in a 1 or 2 minute soundbite when these are very complicated issues. To explain the loss of redevelopment in 1 minute is almost impossible to do. But those priorities are what should guide you and why you should pick me, and they're available on my website. And I've learned from my precinct walking that those are good priorities. People agree with those, and they seem to be universally important to all of us here in Glendale. But in addition to that platform, here's what I bring for consideration for all of you. A knowledge of the city, steadfast resolve to be fair, the understanding of what it takes to be a good steward, and the ability to work with diverse people to do wonderful things for the city. I'm the last one on your ballot. Make me the first box that you mark when you vote on April 2nd. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. That concludes our candidates forum. Our thanks to the candidates and volunteers for your participation in this evening's forum. The League of Women Voters of Glendale Burbank would also like to thank both our audience in attendance and those of you at home. Please be sure to register to vote if you haven't already, and be sure to vote on April 2nd. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.